to another extra episode of Horrenda Talks. For the next 10 weeks, I will make each week an extra episode with the recaps of the first season of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Spoiler alert! If you don't want to know what is in the episode or about Strange New World, please listen to this episode after you have watched the episode. I will post this episode on Wednesday just before the next episode appears on the streaming services. This to avoid spoilers. In the 21st century, Starfleet Admiral Robert April recalls Captain Christopher Pike of the starship USS Enterprise from shore leave after Pike's first officer, Una Chin Riley, referred as Number 1, goes missing during a first contact mission. Pike is reluctant to return to space and confides in a Vulcan science officer Spock, who has just become engaged to Spring, that he saw a vision of his own dad during their mission with the USS Discovery. They travel to the planet Kylie 279, which is a similar state to the 21st century Earth, and on the brink of civil war. They have engineered a weapon from Starship Warp Drive after witnesses the Discovery mission in nearby space. Pike and his crew rescued Number 1 from captivity and break Starfleet's General Order 1 by interfering in the society to convince them not to use the weapon. They avoid repercussions because of the top secret nature of the Discovery mission. But Starfleet doubles down on the rule by renaming it the Prime Directive. Pike recommits to his role as captains the Enterprise on a new 5-year mission of exploration. So guys, what I said in the intro, please, if you don't want to have spoilers, watch the episode first and come back later to listen to this one. Cause it really is not great that they have those different kind of airing dates in different countries. But although I do live in the UK, I have found a way to watch Strange New World when it premieres in America. So, we're going to talk about the first episode. And I must say, I was really, really happy with this because in kind of way it brings you back to the old track. But it has so much more, shall I say, like, Picard was good, but it was very chaotic, very fast, very, because of the time travel shenanigan. And a little bit of note right now, but Will Wheaton, you damn bastard, you have kept that a secret that you will come back as the new time traveler. Well, new time traveler is a big word, but we see you as a traveler for the first time. And on the internet, everyone is speculating that he will be the new Time Lord of Star Trek. What is quite interesting. So I'm very curious what they will do in Season 3. We know already that a few of the TNG cast will returning, although it will not be a reunion, but one thing I do hope that it will be a little bit of a reunion and that Wesley Crusher will be reunited with his mom, because I think they will not see each other for that much time. And I must say, I was very happy how Will Wheaton reprised Wesley Crusher, because I think this wasn't acting for him. This was the how he is in person and how he would have liked be Wesley Crusher when he reprised it for the first time in TNG. So I'm very happy with the way he did it. And I must say he does a really great job with the Ready Room. What do you guys think? And I think they couldn't haven't asked a better person to host that, because he's not only one of the Star Trek actors and he's not one of the people who are really is involved with the Star Trek world, but he's also a Trekkie, a fan, and that is one thing I like about Will. And well, I think we Trekkies, although I know for a lot of you always have been annoyed by Wesley, but maybe what I said before, Wesley was one of the characters I could relate to. Not that I'm that smart or whatever, but it's more like the whole puberty thing and being different, etc., etc., etc. I was really surprised by that he was back, and I was even more surprised that Q actually cared and that he has a heart. So I'm very looking forward to season 3 of Picard. Well, coming back to Strange New World, all in all, in general, I really love the first episode of Strange New World. Also how it's been written, also how it mentioned discovery and a few other things. And I think this is will be one of the better series again since a long time, and especially because they are making so much series that fans and just people can't get a grip of it on what's around and etc., etc. So, and I have said this before, I really and still have that feeling that because they are bringing so much out, so much series, so much, they are working on movies, it's like, to me, it's like what they have done with Star Wars, you know? And I really, really are scared that this will, not particularly this series, but because it is too much, it's so overwhelming and it's gonna be a flop. And especially because, and that is all the roundabout, especially with CBS and Paramount, I think, they're forgetting they have a really big front of fans. And if you will not make the series and movies you make it available for those fans, then what are we talking about? You got the whole fan base against you, and I don't think they want that. So there has to be a way to, I don't want to, maybe a little bit slowing down, but I mean, I'd rather that they make quality series and quality. And I'd rather wait longer than that they make quantity and an X amount in a short time. And like I talked about with Track Canon before, if you watch the TOS, TNG, and Deep Space Nine and Voyager series, they all got seasons of 22 till, 25, 27 episodes each season. What the heck happened to all those new series with just 10 or 14 episodes? And I think we can say we Trek fans don't want to have such more of techno thingies or modern looking Trek, but more like good storylines. And I think a lot of people like that about the quote old Trek series. There are more better written episodes. And I must say, of course, I do like Discovery, I do like Picard, but the pace is so fast. When I watched Discovery, I had to watch those seasons, for a couple of times, like 3-4 times, before I actually could ground it as Star Trek. And I have said this before. So, when I saw the first episode of Strange New Worlds, I was very happy with this, because it was a pace that was normal and you could follow. And like I always do for my podcast, when I do a Star Trek episode, the first time I watch the episode, I will watch the episode as a fan. The second, the third, and the fourth time I watch the episode, I watched it as for the podcast. So I will see more things than I do as a fan. And maybe I will look different as a fan. Well, like in the intro I said, I told you that Una has a special mission, first contact mission, and that went totally wrong. And so this planet had got the warp technology, but they weren't ready for warp. And it reminds me really about Earth when Enterprise was airing and working in, because how can I say that? It's just the beginning of all, and that's what I would liking about the way they did it, because they used Earth as an example for this planet. What you see at the end of the episode, what happened. So Pike was on short leave, and we saw he has a girlfriend, and he rode horses. He had a cabin, somewhere in the mountains. What was typical for him, because it's, I think, how he's brought up, but also in who he is. And we see him kind of having like PTSD because of the trauma of he seeing his future. He's seeing how he will die. And I think that will be for everyone who will know how he will die. I think for everyone that would be a trauma. So I think a lot of people don't want to know. And so Pike and his girlfriend, I think, Captain Bartel, were having morning breakfast, and he was watching this old, how can I say this, old movie, old history video, and I had the feeling that he was stuck. He didn't want to get older because he knew what his death will be. Although it was a very cozy thing that he would actually make breakfast, have a breakfast like a homely breakfast, and maybe you could say it's like how nowadays it will be. Not even that, because yeah, sometimes we're forgetting what family truly is, or just have breakfast and be at rest and start your morning for a change, like chill. So they were having breakfast, and his communicator was ringing, but Pike didn't pick it up, and Captain Patel was saying, "Don't you gonna pick it up?" And he was very evading the subject because he just didn't want to be bothered, and he really needed the time off to work and process the information he got from that time crystal. So Captain Bartel went off, and she said, "Well, I'm going to be off tomorrow. We'll be back in a month." And Pike was really saying, "All right, good, but call me when you're back. Maybe I'm still here, and we will hook up again." What Bartel told him, "Well, it would be nice, but I hope you don't, because you have other important places to go or to be." And I think that is one of the ways, her telling him of, okay, you know this now, get a grip, let it go, and go on with your life, live your life how you want it. So after she were gone, Pike went out riding, and it really, really reminds me of, I don't want to say cavemen, but like those robust men that have a heavy life, and that's how he is. He comes off like riding like that, and there was a shuttlecraft approaching, and shuttlecraft startled the horse, and the person who was in the shuttlecraft was Admiral April. And they had a little conversation, and Pike really didn't go back into space because he wasn't ready for it. But Admiral April gave him the order to get back into the saddle and go, because Una, his first officer, went on his first contact mission and were missing. Pike went earlier back in space than he wanted or could. And maybe being back in space is just what he needed, because I think, and you saw that when he was at his home, how much he had time off, how much he could think about his own dad, how much he didn't want time to go, and that would progress his PTSD in a way. I call it PTSD, but I think it's a process to know what he knew about his life. So then we are coming at the opening credits, the opening theme of TOS, and I really, really love this. They have a really good job. They have done really a good job about this, because it's like the TOS theme, but then in a new jacket. And Anson Mount was the one who say those lyrics, and although we know those lyrics, it was a little bit strange to hear it from Pike's mouth. And it was, I really enjoyed that. I really did. It brings back memories, it brings back sentimentals, it brings back maybe the first generations of Trek who actually have been born with TOS. I think in every way this intro theme will bring a lot of emotions to Trek fans. And seeing the Enterprise again, the Disco Enterprise, I think they upgraded it because it was not totally the same Enterprise than we knew in Disco. Although, if you guys think it was, just tell me but it was just something what I think it was. And, so then we are on Vulcan, and T'Pring and Spock had their first anniversary of courtship. And they had this very weird and very funny conversation, and it was very Vulcan. And although I must say Spock had a lot of more emotions than he would show normally. And we know Ethan Peck is playing a very different Spock than Leonard Nimoy, because his Spock would play a younger Spock who still are trying to cope with his emotions like humans do. And what I really found was strange, and I have no idea if this is really typical Vulcan or just being in the moment, I don't know. But T'Pring asked Spock to marry her. And Spock told her, I never thought you would ask me. And I was thinking, why would you think that, Spock? Because you're good looking, you're great, you have a good job at Starfleet. So, why wouldn't a woman marry you? You have much potential. Then she gave him a necklace, what was me very reminded of the Spock and Uhura on the J.J. Abrams movies. Spock also gave her a necklace with something in what was radioactive, and in one way it was good because that's how they could find her. But it's like they have switched roles, what we normally know. We have, well, not in this time period, of course, but there was a long time and a long tradition, although it's still here, that the man would ask and court the woman. So, I don't know if this is common for Vulcans, that it's the other way around, but yeah, who knows. Then Spock kissed her, and immediately there was a Vulcan servant coming to them, and he was asked them if they could just do that somewhere else. And I must say, T'Pring has a very dry humor. So she answered with that humor, oh, that's a great idea, why don't we leave? And what I was really found about is that we see a little more Vulcan culture. And so they were treated to Spock's chambers, I believe. And they were half naked. And I must say, Ethan Peck looked very sexy in that scene. And it was a very hot scene, like, okay, he's going to make love with her, and it would be as we women love, and having a strong man, and just taking the lead, etc., etc., etc. melt, melt, melt. But at that moment, Spock's communicator rings, and it was Captain Pike. And the first thing Pike asked Spock, Mr. Spock, are you naked? And T'Pring was answering for Spock, but of course with a dry humor, with as in, well, he was not, but he was about to. And so Pike apologized, etc., 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 and called Spock and the others back to Enterprise because they needed to go. Then Pike has been transported to the Enterprise by shuttle, and the shuttle is called Stamets. What I was really surprised by, because, well, the Stamets we know is on Discovery, and in that way, Stamets we know, and I must say, Stamets have been through a revolution in a couple of seasons, from very not approachable Stamets to a loving dad Stamets, and I really loved that transformation, I really did. So the shuttle called Stamets, and he had a little conversation with the helm, and then he beamed down to the Enterprise, and Spock was already there and greeted him and reported that all decks are good and that they could go. By the way, that Chief Kyle of the transporter room is familiar, but I can't remember where he is from. Maybe you guys know it. So Pike asked Spock how he was doing, and they both mentioned Burnham and that they miss her, and I really love that. I really love that mention. Then, when they come on the bridge, Pike has given a new number one, and to be honest, in one way it's strange to have a number one just for this mission, but the new number one is also the new security chief of the Enterprise, but I don't see her as a number one. I don't know, it's just maybe because she doesn't have that aura of being a number one yet. Pike was very surprised that Spock wouldn't be his first officer, because, yes, in one way, Spock was that first officer. And so Spock informed him that Starfleet Command thought Spock would be better as a scientist officer than also being his first officer. What I think personally was very ridiculous. But okay, that's what they thought. Pike have been introduced to all the new crew members, and under those crew members is Cadet Uhura, the prodigy of communication. She is very well known already in the Starfleet world, so but I kind of like her too, and she brings a peaceful energy to the crew bridge. I do like the helm. The helmswoman was it's very typical. Operation is great. And then we of course have Spock, the new security chief, who is being called Lieutenant Noonien Singh. Everyone knows it, of course, what I'm meaning of. And I think there will be a great crew. And also what I'm noticing right away of the crew is that they were very informal and very relaxed. And I think this is one of the reasons a lot of people want to serve under Captain Pike, because he himself is a very, very relaxed captain, an informal captain. And yes, he's following the rules, but he also can screw the rules up and saying, what the heck, not in my time, rules are rules, but they can be broken in situations. For example, what they have done in this episode. They were going out of dry dock, and they were going have the order from Pike to go on warp. But when he was watching, by the way, I like the chair. I like the chair he's sitting in. Very, it's even nicer than the one from TOS, to be honest. So, he sees himself, his reflection in that pad on his chair. But he sees himself at the brink at that fatal accident that he has, that radiation accident in the future. And that became almost his death. First the helm asked him, Captain, can we go? Then also the other crew members are looking to him, and number one was asking, Captain, your orders, please. And it took Spock to snap him out of it. And that was the moment we see Christopher Pike was not himself, and that he was very troubled. Pike gave the order, and as soon as they went out into warp, he said, number one, you got the helm, and I'll be in my office. 10 minutes later, Spock come in. And we see Spock that he was very, very worried about Pike, because that mission, what happened on Discovery. So he knows that Pike, in a way, seen his future at the time crystals. And so Pike is talking to Spock about his future, the death of his, and how he got that injured, etc., etc., etc. And that was a conversation that I was thinking, okay, so Spock is a lot of more like a counsel to him than, and he was that already in Discovery, but I mean, you could see here in this scene that Spock was more a friend and advisor to Pike than anyone else. And in one way that was a very beautiful moment, because you could see how Pike struggled with it, and how Pike have been in the last few weeks and, well, months. It was very sweet moment that you could see that also Spock has I don't want to say feelings. Of course he shows feelings, but I mean, he's got empathy, and he also got really that friend side of him, not the Vulcan sarcastic side, but the human side. So Uhura was calling them, well, Captain, we are coming out of war, and we warp, and we are at the planet. So they are going to investigate, and they see one of the other ships. I can't remember what the name was, but it was like a ship for like 3 people, and there were also 3 people to investigate first contact. But they couldn't find anything, no life signs or whatever. The only thing they could the tag was a warp signature. But this was a planet that doesn't have warp drive or whatever, because it was like 21st century Earth. Lieutenant Noonien Singh had a feeling, okay, I have seen this before. We need to put the deflector alarm on. And she just mentioned that. And when she did, 3 plasma torpedoes from down the planet fired upon the Enterprise. And that brings even more questions with it, because a planet that isn't evolved yet to have warp speed or plasma torpedoes or space traveling, how could they have those torpedoes? So there were more questions than answers. And Spock was the first one who said, well, they have some kind of a warp technology, and instead of building warp engines, they made a warp bomb. So Pike, Spock, and Noonien Singh were in the reading room, and they were discussing something, and how do we go from there? And Pike always had the attention, okay, let's go down to the planet then to investigate. So he mentioned, okay, let's go to the doctor, let's go to sickbay to change appearance, because we can't go as humans or as Vulcans, because that will be a heck of a explosion for those on the planet. So what they did, they went to see the doctor, and well, it appears that Pike and the doctor know each other for a long time. They have served with each other on projects and on ships and whatever else more. So it was very nice to see how they interact, and it reminds me a little bit of Bones and Kirk. Speaking of Kirk, there will be arriving a Kirk on this ship. It isn't James Kirk yet, but it is his brother Samuel, who is a science officer. So I'm very curious about that, because we really don't that much about Captain Kirk, family dynamic, and how they are, etc., etc., etc. We also meet Nurse Chapel, and I really liked her. She's cute. She is not only, but she's bringing life, and I'm not talking about literally, but figure speaking. In like, okay, she's a busy bee, and she is one of the best to change your DNA or change your genetic cells to have a other appearance, so they could go on missions. So this was a really eye-opening how it could be for, because this is just the beginning of those days. And when we are watching TNG, it doesn't hurt anymore. But because they still have side effects on this time period, the changing of your body and genetic is very painful. And if you talk about Spock is half Vulcan, so she needed to boost his hyperspray and medic to get to the point that he would change. So but La'an wasn't happy with it, because she hated it. And with her experience with the Gorn and etc. in younger life, I can imagine that. But she didn't like it at all. So she asked Pike, are you ordering me to do this, or do I have a choice to get out of it? But Pike, he has a way to talk to you, to convince you in, like, yeah, how can I say this? He is very well trained to say things and to get things his way and how to get them done. And so she go on with it, although she isn't happy. But okay, she will do it. They beam down to the planet, and they all wear short pants, although, Spock. As Spock was saying, Captain, where are my trousers, or where are my pants? So Pike needed to tell him, well, it's just the clothing they are wearing here. But did you see, guys, that Ethan Peck, I don't know if it is a real tattoo or a fake tattoo, he had a tattoo on his leg. And I was thinking, huh? A Vulcan? A tattoo? What? Nah. So, or I have seen it wrong, and maybe it could be something on the trousers, on the pants, I don't know. Then they saw two scientists walking by, and La'an came into action, and they could, quote, kidnap them for the mission, and they will take their clothes so they could enter the facility. And there was a small talk between Spock and La'an, and that was very, well, funny in a way of how they talk. Spock very Vulcan, and she was just like a rebellion in a way. And Nurse Chapel and the doctor saw and figured out that Spock needed a boost serum to stay in his form. And so they're working fast. They try to, one of the scientists who were stated on the Enterprise was compatible for Spock's genes, etc. So they made a serum for Spock, and they needed to do it fast because Spock wouldn't accept it by that scanning device. But meanwhile, that scientist would wake up, and he escaped sickbay. And Chapel and the doctor were looking at each other, and they laughed and said, okay, let's play the catch like we did on Delta Scopy 7. What was very funny, and that was also right away that I liked Nurse Chapel, because the Nurse Chapel we know from TOS was very laid back, very timid, very sweet, and this Chapel was full of action. And probably because she is playing a young Chapel, but I rather like her because she is very resourceful in what she does. The only weird thing, and we know of course she is at that point a civilian on Enterprise, as a civilian doctor. What was really strange strange for me because I always thought that she would always be already in Starfleet, medical Starfleet. So to me it was a really bit weird to see her wearing the white uniform instead of the blue. But okay, that maybe come together still. So before they got into this facility where Una and the rest has been captured, they need to be scanned and they need to scan their eyes. So Pike and La'an were accepted, but Spock failed. And it was really at the nick of time that Spock got the green light. They find Una. Una was very happy to see them. And a little bit, I don't want to say skeptic, but more like surprised to see Pike, but also La'an, because she knew La'an for a while, and she helped La'an to get on her feet, and she knew La'an's background, so it was nice to see them reunited again. And well, they want to leave the holding cell where they were in, and they walked to the elevator, and there was one of those aliens that were looking at Pike, and she kind of liked Pike. I think Pike also has like a attraction like Kirk has, but only Pike has a more gentleman way than Kirk will have. Talking about Kirk, Jim Kirk, what do you guys think about they wanted to make him bisexual? And I'm not against bisexual, whatever, but like in Picard, they are changing things that I'm thinking, I don't know if that will be followed and accepted by fans, because we already know a lot about their backgrounds. Like, for example, Raffi and Seven. I do must say they make a cute couple. Don't get me wrong. So they were in the elevator, and that woman saw Spock's ears grow. Talking about Spock's ears, did you notice that his Vulcan ears are different now? It's almost like elfish ears, and I don't know why. Maybe they have a reason that they did that, I don't know. But I don't know, maybe they going to play with, okay, how are we doing for this kind of Vulcans. Then they step out of the elevator. And again, there are people walking up them, 2 security guys and 2 scientists. But Spock mentioned to Pike that the pain was unbearable. And he cringed and he screamed. This is not Spock we know. But okay, he screamed. The pain was there and then it was gone. And Spock had changed back to his normal self. And he was very relieved and was signing, oh, good. Now the pain is gone. But they were in big troubles. And they escape. They need to take another elevator. And Spock could tell them, okay, we are close enough to the Enterprise and they can beam us out. But Pike was very troubled. Once again, he saw himself in like the elevator's wall, as in how he will be changing in life. after his injuries from the radiation injuries. So Una told him what happened, and Pike was a little pissed off because Una gave him the warp technology. But Una tells him that they were the people who saw in their telescope what happened when Discovery opened a wormhole for Discovery. So they light up the sky, and so it's like okay, we give you this, but be careful with it. And so Pike ordered to beam them up, except for himself and Spock. And Spock was saying, but sir, I'm really the alien here, and etc, 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 and that's gonna be a big trouble. And Pike said, well, I hope it's gonna be, because we have a lot of explaining to do. So Pike and Spock being captured, they have, but Una also said, well, but Captain Pike, we are in regenerating of General Order 1, and you saw Pike's face, and he said, well, immediately screw General Order 1, because this is a different case of Spock and Pike beamed down, were captured. And Pike tried to explain to the president, well, this and this and this is it, and you make a weapon now to win the war, but that is not how it has shown to be. And at the moment that they have been brought to the brig, they Pike did something. Those communicators of him and Spock were close to the president, and Pike said something in the line of override Captain Pike's order, Enterprise, show them what you got. And at that moment, the Enterprise was visible, and you saw all those mouths drop, etc, 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 and that was the thing. And there was something in that conversation as well about who has the biggest stick will win. And because Deus had the warp technology to make a warp bomb, they were very, I don't want to say surprised, but very shocked that there was an alien ship nearby. And Pike was like chuckling like, yeah, well, it seems I have the bigger stick. That was the moment that the two leaders of the planet actually came in one room and debated. And so Pike and Spock have watched this from the wedding room with La'an. And La'an made a comment what Pike was a little bit pissed off about. And then it was La'an's turn to tell Pike that, well, what happened to her and how she fights the Gorn and etc, etc, etc. And it all ended up that he said, well, the leaders are talking now. The only thing we can do now is influence them to use this weapon where it is meant to be. So not a warp bomb, but warp drive to do space travels. He ordered Uhura to punch a signal to the planet so he could give the people on the planet a history lesson. And the leaders of the planet were very discussing everything, and everything was on big screen in all the cities, etc., etc., etc. And then Pike beamed down. And you saw their face, they were very shocked, etc. And not only that, Pike introduced himself and told them, well, we are very similar. This is Earth in the 21st century. This is how we used to be. And you see this and that, and it's a beautiful planet like yours. And till a point that we went in a civil war, and we destroyed each other with the same technology. So this is your fate, this is your future. And, you know, I think that was a great speech he gave. And I was wondering, why is everyone on the Enterprise had tears in their eyes or were very emotional and sentimental how Pike's speech. And I must confess, it was a beautiful speech. But yeah, so emotional, and I think he gave them a solution, two solutions. Or you're going to get between a war together and you see what happens. You see our history. Or you can join the Federation of Planets. And you saw them of thinking, yeah, maybe this can be the future. We can't destroy ourselves. So, in that way, it was a very happy ending. So we are back on the Enterprise. The Enterprise is being back at Starbase One. I loved Starbase One. I have seen Starbase One in a couple of variants, not only in the movies, the series, but also on Star Trek Online, and I really loved this variant of it. They did a really good job. Also, the interior of the Enterprise itself, I really loved it. So, Admiral April had to pull a lot of strings to not put Pike and the rest into a brick or get them convicted on what they did. But they also had, I think that's also the moment that they would change that General 1 order into the Prime Directive. But it's also that I think at that point Starfleet will be born. So we have to see what in the next episode will be there, as in how Starfleet will be born, or how they will travel and explore what they would do. And so that, I think they did a very good job with this episode. So then there was a moment that La'an needed to be with Pike, and Pike, she and him had a conversation, and La'an would be leaving because number 1 was back. But Pike asked her to stay and become his chief of security, because they need one. And she was happily to obliged. And also Pike is staying on the Enterprise, and you could see at that moment he was moving on, and he said, okay, I've seen that, I know it will be happening, but I need to live for myself and still live my life. How much I want it, but the Enterprise is my home, and it will never go away, and I will be the captain to my dad. In a way. So then we're on the bridge, and Pike had another great pep talk speech. What they have really written well. I must say they really have written well this episode. And then Samuel Kirk, the science officer, came on the Enterprise on the bridge, and he was very excited and wanted to work, but he also knew Pike, and their friendship and how they greeted each other. It's good to see that Pike is that much loved, and I always have known that. I always have said that. So why not? Pike told Samuel that Spock will be his big boss, and you saw Spock's looking okay, typical human. And then they leave Starbase 1. And at the moment that Pike said, "Hit it," what I like, that was the Pike we know and how he would become. So guys, I have recapped this episode, first episode of Strange New World, and the only thing I'm still gonna do is the rating. I'll give it a 9, because who knows what's still going to happen. We still have 9 episodes to go in this season, so I'm very excited what will happen. For a first episode, it was really great. It took me back to TOS, and I'm very excited to see what they have made more for us, because I think this series, and it's already been speculated about it, that this series will bring Fate back in Star Trek, and not only Star Trek, but also in Star Trek TOS. It's not only emotional or sentimental, but it also is something what we know. We, like Discovery of Picard, it took a while for a lot of Trekkies to accept it, that Star Trek is changing. But also, we couldn't feel and see that it is Star Trek. So with this series, this is a very good pilot. And I'm very happy that they made it this way. So, this was it for now. And thank you for listening. And I hope you join me next week for a new recap of Star Trek Strange New World. And those extra episodes of Orinda Talks in the series of Star Trek is because my love of Star Trek. If you'd like to comment or talk with me about this episode, you can reach out on the Facebook group or the YouTube channel of Orinda Talks. You also can subscribe to the YouTube channel or join the Facebook group of Orinda Talks. Well, I see you next week.